Alright, hello. This is totally going to be an experiment. Welcome to the Masked YouTuber. Hi. Hello. 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 Hola. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Hola. Hello. 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 Wow, what an intro. So, as I said, at first I thought, no, that's insane. There's no way Apple is going to make a car. But you know what? They just might. Why do I say that? So, if Apple was going to make a car, how would they do it? Well, first of all, I think Apple could kind of compete, sort of, with other cars, maybe. Let's just think if they didn't gonna make an AI car, right? What if Apple was gonna just make a normal car? Well, they would probably, first of all, design-wise, that car would probably look pretty similar to the way Porsche looks, right? Porsche, right? The German Porsche brand. So, because Porsche, they're very well made. They are they're very precise. They're industrial. They're thought through, and they have a bit of a minimalistic thing going on, right? And I think all those things are very similar to what Apple kind of has. So, and obviously with a car, a big thing is aerodynamics, right? So obviously it's going to be an aerodynamic shape, and I think it would probably be similar to the way the Porsches look. I would, if I was to bet, I would think that the design of the Apple car would be something like a simplified Porsche design, right? So you take a Porsche and you kind of simplify it a little bit more. You kind of make it, first of all, there's no reason for a hall like Tesla doesn't have one. So it's going to be from one solid piece, and it's probably going to be very minimal. Maybe the lights are going to be like little straps, something very minimal. And I think overall the car is probably going to look very simplified, right? Because Apple likes to simplify with their design. So it's going to be probably a very simplified form of a car, right? Something that looks like almost like a universal car, right? Or universal car shape that is kind of fluid and aerodynamic. So design-wise, I think that's how it would look. It would probably be quite, practical. It's going to be for four people. It's going to have a trunk. It's going to have all those normal things that cars have. Now, the thing that Apple can do with their current technology is stuff like your car can unlock when you approach it automatically because you have a phone in your pocket or your Apple Watch, so they unlock your car. So you maybe don't even have to have keys. You can just approach your car and it unlocks itself. Maybe it's gonna start playing iTunes music. It's probably there's gonna be like handoff. So if you were listening to music with your iPhone, the same music is just gonna start playing in a car. Maybe your iPhone just turns off automatically the sound on the iPhone. There can be like maybe you have your favorite temperature set with Apple Home, so your car can default to that temperature. You can listen to your Apple Music in your car. You can play games. You can, if you have an Apple TV subscription, you can watch Apple TV. And you can do a couple of other things. So, you would think that the seats of the car would be pretty comfortable. You would think that the materials would be nice and luxurious. And if Apple did this, they could probably capture a little bit of a market doing this. People would buy the Apple car. Why not? It's the Apple car. That's a cool thing. It's a really cool thing. So, people would buy the Apple car. In a way, whatever Apple makes, people want to buy it. There's a couple of other concerns. The cost of a car is pretty huge compared to the cost of things Apple is usually making. And you just don't buy a car every year. You buy it every couple of years, every 5 years maybe. But then you can argue, well, you know what? Maybe you buy your Mac every 5 years too. So maybe that there's more similarities than people would think normally. Where things actually start being really interesting is the AI. I think that if Apple was gonna go and make a car, they would do it with the AI approach. Because if they don't really have much to offer, you know. Apple Car, it's an interesting idea. Why not? They can probably fix a few things. They can probably do it better than other companies. But you know, the car industry has existed for hundreds of years, right? At least for decades. And there's so many established brands that are very well, like BMW. Think about BMW. They have cars like the 3 Series. I think the first one was, I'm not even sure, maybe in the 70s was made. The first time the 3 Series was made. That's a long time ago. And just BMW had like 40 years to perfect that car. It's pretty perfect. And the Apple way, Apple usually likes to go into industries and kind of do it better than people have done it before. That's usually the Apple way. And, you know, it's a question if Apple can actually do something better than BMW that has making a car for 40 years, that has had so much time to perfect so many little details in that car, and also so many manufacturing steps as well. So let's be sure and be clear about a couple of things in the start. First of all, if Apple was going to make a car, it's going to be an electric car. That's for sure. Apple is going to not make a car that's not an electric car. That obviously makes no sense. So the electric cars are the future, right? Tesla is doing it. Tesla is kind of like the Apple of cars, the Apple of electric cars. I guess Apple can have some really cool tech, a really cool battery tech. So maybe they can make a car that has longer range, that has all this, you know, that's well integrated into the Apple ecosystem, that has auto unlock with your Apple, with your iPhone or with your Apple Watch. That has the iTunes and the Apple Music, and it has the Apple TV, you know, so you have access to all that stuff. Maybe you have, you know, you basically have your iPod in the car, and you know, it can have some other nice features like Apple Maps integrated and something like that. So that's all well. But I think that's not where Apple Car is really going to happen. I don't think that's really the right thing. I think if Apple is going to make a car, it's going to be an AI. And I actually think Apple can make an AI. And I was just thinking about this idea, and I was thinking, well, if I was Apple, how would I actually devise making an AI car? So Apple has a couple of key competences to be able to actually pull it off. First of all, they're a huge company. They have a lot of money, so they can buy pretty much any technology they want. So we're going to say Apple can definitely make a car generally. They can make a car chassis. They can make, you know, a nicely designed car. They can make nice seats. They can put all the Apple stuff in it, all the Apple ecosystem stuff in it. You can have Apple Music. You can have handoff. You can have auto unlock with the iPhone. Maybe you can have features like from the iPhone, you can set your car to, I don't know, have a certain temperature when you approach it, or maybe start playing a certain song, or maybe, a few things like that. But that's not that interesting, really. What's really interesting is if it was self-driving, right? So what if you can actually press a button like you can with BMW and Tesla and so on, and the car comes and picks you up? That's pretty cool. You have your iPhone, you press a button, maybe you just say, "Hey Siri, bring my car," and Siri brings your car. Obviously, the Apple car is going to have Siri integrated, but the whole interesting thing is, can Apple actually do self-driving? And I think it can. Apple has been doing cameras for a very long time. Cameras are important for self-driving. Apple has been doing image processing for a very long time. They have great image processors in the iPhones, some of the best. This is they're very important for the Apple car. Apple is doing the LiDAR with the new iPhone and the iPad and so on. LiDARs are the key to self-driving, and Apple has the Apple Maps and a couple of other things. So I think also one of the reasons why Apple is going to go the AI route, that's my prediction. I mean, I'm not sure, but I think that is kind of the Apple way, because Apple doesn't really like to give a lot of control to users. So if Apple is going to make a car, it's going to actually go into the AI type of car where, the car kind of drives itself. It gives you that convenience that most Apple products kind of give you, They tend to give you that. So that's the Apple car. So that's the AI part. Now, how is this going to work going forward? Apple can make a couple of things. How do you even make a AI? So now that we've established that Apple actually may be interested to go into this industry, let's talk about how do you actually make an AI car so that it works. Well, let's start from the beginning. What do you need to have a self-driving car? Obviously, first of all, you need to have an electric car, and you need to have motors, and you need to have some circuit board that's going to control those motors. And I'm basically talking about like those toy cars that you control from the remote that you keep in your hands. So you got to have that technology to start with, right? So you got to be able to actually steer the car. But obviously, that's not a problem. But how do you make it smart? Well, let's see. First, you need maps. You need maps of the world. And you need these maps to be GPS referenced, to have GPS reference points, so that your car can know where generally the streets are. Apple actually has this. They have Apple Maps, and they also have GPS devices built into everything. They have been doing GPS with iPhones for a very long time, and it's pretty precise. So they know how to make GPS, they know how to make maps. They're doing both. So the first thing is to put the car roughly on the road. So you want to have a map that has outlined the corridors where the car should drive. And you want to have a GPS device that's going to communicate with the satellites and send the data and basically tell car if the car is kind of where it should be, right? You want to have streets in those maps. You want to have a way to connect to tell the car to go from place A to place B. This is something Apple already has. Apple Maps have this. So Apple already has this, right? They actually have that technology. And they have GPS, so the car can actually know where it is. So they kind of have this already, right? The next thing you need is you need some sort of a security, right? So you need a security not to hit a different car, not to run some person over. LiDAR is the key for this. You need to have LiDAR. And LiDAR, it's basically a perfect 3D world, right? It's a perfect scan of the 3D world with LiDAR. And if you have a LiDAR, what you're basically having is you just need to say, well, look, always keep a certain distance, right? So if the car in front of you is braking, I'm going to brake, right? The Apple car is going to brake. Because you have LiDAR, you have a 3D scan of the world. So you just say, well, okay, let's keep the same distance, right? If the car is braking, I'm going to brake. So that's kind of easy, right? So if you're doing that, you kind of, and obviously since you have maps, you know what's the speed limit. So you just drive with the speed limit, and that's pretty fine. So if you're doing these two things, you're kind of safe to be driving this car. There's a couple of other things. But yeah, let's think about LiDAR. Apple is doing LiDAR with iPhones, so they kind of know how to do it as well. Face unlock feature is basically using LiDAR as well, so they've been doing that for a while. So I think they kind of have, it's not new for them. They have experience in that industry too. So let's say that if you're using LiDAR to brake, and if you have maps, you kind of know where to go and you're not going to hit anything. So that's pretty good to start with, right? You're basically not going to kill your passenger, which is very useful. And you kind of know where to drive, right? Sort of precise. Now you need to have a LiDAR that's going to also scan the size of the car as well as in front of you, so that it knows if on the side of the road there's like a fence, or there's a tree, or there's I don't know, like a pothole or whatever, so the car can actually not hit it. Or maybe there's a pedestrian that just runs in front of you, so the car needs to be able to stop. So you can do all of this with LiDAR. That's pretty great. You're going to have a bunch of other cameras too. These are cameras, right? So you're going to have a bunch of cameras around the car, so that you actually can see the context. Now you're going to have to do a little bit of a kind of recognizing of the space, so that you can know where exactly you should drive. Because GPS is kind of giving you coordinates, but you don't really know where exactly you need to drive. So you need to be able to actually recognize where the street is. Now, this is not that hard, because streets are generally a gray color. It's the color of the asphalt. And they have markings, which are actually very easy to identify. They're made in such a way to be very easy to identify. So, an AI, an image recognition software can pretty easily actually recognize where the markings are and where the pavement is. It's one of the easiest things for a human to recognize what the street is, right? So your AI has to know what the street is, right? Where it should drive. So it basically just needs to kind of recognize where are the borders of the street, right? It kind of knows where it is in the world with the GPS, but it needs to know the borders, how much left and how much right it can go. I think your car can do that. I think that's not that hard to do. You just need to detect the right kind of side and the left side and say, well, okay, here we are, and that's kind of fine. You can also use cameras to detect the surroundings and kind of help LiDAR kind of understand where that is. And also you can use cameras to detect if there's going to be, if cars in front of you are kind of starting to move more slowly, so that you know that you need to brake, or if there are pedestrians around you. So there can be like a danger meter, right? Danger coefficient, right? So a number. So like maybe danger is 5%. That means your car can drive pretty fast. But what if the danger is 80%? That means that maybe cars in front of you are slowing down. There's a lot of people around you, a lot of other objects. Your car knows that it's dangerous. So it just kind of slows down more, maybe drives more carefully, maybe, pays more attention. Pretty much the same like humans do, right? Like humans do that. Humans just drive more carefully if it's more dangerous. I mean, if you think about driving in a way that humans actually drive, you're going to say, well, okay, how do I drive? Well, I sit in a car, I steer the car, I see where the street is. And how do I know what the street is? Well, street is, it's gray, it's asphalt, and it has these markings, right? That's the street. So I just drive in the street. I need to know what my lane is, but that's easy because lanes are marked. There's white markings, or if there's no white markings, there's basically a pedestrian walk on the sides or a fence or something, right? So there's like a very distinct piece of visual image that you can see, which is the road, right? So that's the road. So using that and using the fact that where map says and where the road is supposed to be, Apple can, with those two informations, detect where it should place the car. So if the car can just go straight. And then with the LiDAR, it's actually making an extremely precise scan of the world so that it knows it's not going to hit something, right? And so that it knows to kind of drive again a little bit better or straight. So these technologies are pretty cool and they are well into what Apple can do, but they're pretty cool, and they can kind of allow you to actually make a self-driving car already. You need to have another thing though. You need to be able to recognize red lights, and you need to be able to recognize signs. Now, sign detection is not a problem. I mean, computers, all the signs are the same in the whole world. I mean, at least in continents or in countries. It's extremely easy for a computer to actually recognize a sign, right? Because like a stop sign looks like a stop sign. The cool thing with the traffic is that it's actually so dumbed down. It's so easy. Traffic and self-driving should actually be one of the easiest things to conquer for computers, because in a way traffic is actually very much made to support computers, because it's made so that the idiot can drive. There's like a huge big red stop sign, which means stop, and that's easy for a computer to recognize. The only thing here, and there's another important thing, is you need to place the cameras in a computer. I'm not sure if car manufacturers are doing it right now, but you need to place them in such a way that they actually see the same image a driver would see. So you literally put a dummy, a driver, in a car, in a front car seat, and you put a camera in the eyes of the driver, and you see what that driver sees. And then you install the cameras in a car to actually see the same image from the same kind of perspective. Because all the stuff, all the red lights, all the traffic signs and so on are going to be placed in such a way that the driver can see them, right? So if you have a camera that is actually getting the same image the driver would be getting, that camera is going to be able to see everything the driver would see. In other words, that camera would actually see the signs and everything else. And when you have the video stream of the signs and of the red lights and so on, well, it's actually not that hard to detect that there's a sign that says stop, or that there's a red light. The red light may be a little bit more different, maybe, but then again, you kind of know that they're going to be at the intersections so your car can actually pay more attention to the red lights. And then again, you can just have a map of red lights, which is pretty simple. Your car needs to be able to actually detect a red light without having a map. But also a big thing is your car is actually going to be creating a map, just like humans are actually creating a mental map. When you learn to drive, right? And when you're driving in your city for the first time, you don't really know where things are. And you can get lost sometimes, and you can actually also kind of make some mistakes. That's why you're a learner driver at the beginning. And so the car is doing the same. The car is going to basically be making a mental map of the city. And it's going to say, well, you know what? Here is a traffic light. Here is a stop sign. Here is, a slippery part of the road. Maybe here's a pothole that I need to kind of slow down when I'm going over it. And just like a human driver, the car can remember all of these things, right? And he just learned. He just said, okay, well, there's a traffic light here. So I know there's a traffic light there always, right? So even though maybe my camera would actually not see it this time because of some bad conditions, I know that there's a traffic light there. So I'm going to just really be slow and really kind of look for it, right? Because I know it's there. Just like a human driver would actually do. So this is a big component of driving. I don't know if people realize, but humans actually learn to drive situationally, right? So you're learning how to drive in the actual spatial place in your city. And you know that the streets are the way. Like I have a speed bump in my street, and it was newly positioned. And actually, when it was positioned the first 5 times, I actually went over it with full speed. I just didn't brake. The first time I didn't even see it because it's in a bad spot, so you don't really see it on time. And the first time I just went over it. The second time I kind of tried to stop, but didn't really stop, so I just went over it. And a couple of other times I kind of also kind of stopped, kind of not, something in between, not really good. And then I learned, right? Then I said, well, you know what, I really have to pay attention. There's a speed bump there, so I need to kind of know that there's a speed bump there. And that's how I learned that there's a speed bump in that place, right? So the car is going to be doing the same thing. The car is going to make a mental map of the streets it is driving on. It's going to say, well, there's always a speed bump here. So I need to anticipate the speed bump. When I'm approaching it, I'm just going to start slowing down before I actually go over the speed bump. That's pretty cool. And it's very much possible for a car to do. It can actually detect a speed bump by detecting a shake, right? And that's another thing that the iPhone actually has. It has a shake sensor. So you can put a shake sensor in a car, and if the car is shaking too much, it can just start going a little bit more slowly so that it shakes a little bit less. And it can detect speed bumps even that way too, right? So it can be like I can try to see a speed bump with my camera, and that's going to be great. I'm going to be able to see it, but I'm also going to detect it with my wheels, right? And with my shake sensor, right? So when I go over it, I'm actually going to know that there's a speed bump, and I'm going to actually remember that on those GPS coordinates, there's a speed bump. And every time I go over it, I'm just going to first slow down because I know there's a speed bump there. And if they remove it, I'm going to sense that too, because every time I go over it, I can verify if there was a speed bump. So if when they remove it, I'm going to slow down again, but I'm just going to go over it without shaking my sensor for shaking. And I'm going to say, well, you know what, my gyroscope, right? My gyroscope, which iPhones already have. You know what? There's no sensor here, so I can just continue going straight. It's fine. By the way, I didn't even mention compass. That's also useful for a car. So anyway, so yeah, so you, but you know what is the really big thing? All the Apple cars can actually share the same data, because Apple can actually real time upload this data to the cloud, and all the other Apple cars just get the stream of that data. So only the first car actually needs to either spot the speed bump or spot the traffic light or spot a traffic sign. Only for the first car. When the first car spots the speed bump in a certain place, all the other cars know it because they just get updated real time. That's a powerful thing because you have your iPhone, right? Apple can do it easily with the iPhone because you have your iPhone, which has internet. So you just get a stream to your iPhone, which actually then shares it with your car and just tells you, well, here's, some other car went over it and knows there's a speed bump, so you should just be slow. That's a big deal. That's actually much better than humans driver can do because even if you're a great driver, you don't really know all the roads in the world. But this computer system is going to very intimately be able to know all the roads in the world. And here's another thing that is great. If you have a LiDAR, you can actually make a real-time, real-world 3D model so that your car knows exactly how the streets look like. And if there's a pothole, if there's a fence, if there's whatever, the tree, whatever there is, your car can actually, with the LiDAR, it can scan the street. And it uploads this model to the cloud. And all the other Apple cars just download that. And then the LiDAR scan again gets improved with all the cars that go through, right? What that means is that Apple can have a virtually perfect real-time updated map of the world, and it can know, it can just navigate the car in that world. So that's pretty easy. And if you have that world, if you literally know where the pedestrian kind of rising is, right? Because all the streets are actually lower level than the pedestrian walking, right? So that's another way to detect where the street ends. Where the street is going to end, there's going to be a bump in a road, right? Because like a step, because pedestrians walk on a higher ground than the cars. So that's another way to detect. And if you have a LiDAR in a car, LiDAR can actually scan that. So you can have a very precise, LiDAR is super precise. So with a LiDAR, you actually really know where to drive a car. You just go straight. It's like if you have like you have a ball, right? And you have like a canal, like a tunnel, and you put a ball through a tunnel, right? Like I don't know, like a so if you have that, it's kind of similar, right? So the car can't really go do so much wrong. It just needs to go through that kind of track, right? Which is tracked for it with LiDAR and with cameras, and it just needs to brake. And it has the LiDAR which is scanning the car in front of it, so that it's gonna brake when that car brakes. So that's kind of it. And you have maps that tell you, well, you need to go that way. And you need to go that way, and you go that way. And then you just need to be able to detect the red light and the stop sign. And you do that by using your cameras, but also you do that because only the first car needs to actually see the camera. All the other cars know that there's a traffic light there or there's a sign there. And they already know what the sign says, actually. But they're still going to look for the sign because they want to verify that it's still there, right? And that means that there's a real-time building a real-time map on a global scale of the whole world, of the whole traffic, which is pretty precise, which is a real-time update, which is not something a human driver can do. And that actually gives a huge edge to the AI in this particular way of use. And I think Apple is the company that actually has all the core competencies to do it. They actually have all this stuff. I think maybe Apple could do that. They are also making their own processors so they can make a processor for that car that's going to be custom made, custom Apple silicon for the car. And the LiDAR and the gyroscope and the GPS and the cameras and the camera processing chip and the video streaming chip and what else? And the Apple iTunes and Apple Music and Apple TV and all that stuff. And then, check this out. If you have a self-driving car, playing Apple movies in that car, playing Apple TV in that car is suddenly a huge thing, right? So, but I think the big thing is really to just have a self-driving car. Obviously, that's enough for itself, but just like icing on a cake, you can even play games in that car on some super screen or whatever. So yeah, I think to make a car, that's what you need. You need a you need a way to first. You need a map to know where generally you should drive. So that's a GPS and a map. You need a LiDAR to scan the street and cameras. First LiDAR to scan the street, to scan for the pedestrian walk. You need cameras to kind of scan for the white line that's defining streets, or just you need to define your street, where you should drive the car on the street. And then you need to have LiDAR that's going to basically tell you to brake on time so that you don't hit the car in front of you. This is all a tech that actually other companies already have and have had for quite a while, in fact. What is the missing key to this puzzle? I mean, nothing. Somebody just needs to kind of do it, to kind of take all that technology and do it. And this is something that Apple has done with the iPhone. Apple basically took all the technologies that already existed and combined them in a way that hasn't been done before, and they made a much better phone than anything else on the market. So, theoretically, I think Apple could maybe do it with a car. I don't know, but maybe. Definitely having a self-driving car, especially with this data sharing and scanning of the real world, that is a pretty powerful thing, and I think it would be pretty great if Apple was going to do it, or any other company really. But it's definitely doable. It's definitely possible. I don't think it's that far. I just think a big company with a lot of money needs to go into it. And you know what the problem with Tesla is? Tesla is actually really focused on production of the cars too. And that's a big problem for Apple, I think, because I think it's all about the AI. It's all about self-driving. And it would be great if a company could just solve self-driving, right? Without, in fact, making a car. Obviously, Apple is going to make a car, in fact. Maybe they're just going to take an OEM and like Porsche and have them, Volkswagen, and have them commission a car for them, produce a car for them. Probably, because Apple is not making iPhones either. Apple is an intellectual company, so they're not going to have factories, probably. They don't have factories for iPhones or for processors, for anything. So they're just going to... What Apple is going to do, I think, now when I'm thinking about it, Apple is going to go to Volkswagen, which is making, I think, Audi and Porsche, right? Porsche, I think. And they're just going to say, well, I want you to make the Apple car. And we're going to give you, blueprints to make Apple car. And so Apple car is basically going to be produced in a Volkswagen factory. I think that makes sense because Apple is already working with Porsche and Porsche is a Volkswagen company, and Volkswagen is a huge automaker with a lot of brands. So that's a realistic thing, and if Apple was going to do that through a cooperation, then it doesn't have to build factories. Then it only needs to make the IP, the intellectual property, to do it. And I think Apple can do that. I think Apple is in a situation to actually do something like that. And I also think they are the company that actually has all the technology needed to, in fact, solve the self-driving thing. They have insanely talented people, and they have really deep pockets. So, that's a possibility. I think Apple could, in fact, nail self-driving. And now when I kind of went into it, I think it's a possibility. I think it's a feasible business opportunity. It's definitely something that Apple can dominate. They can, in fact, make a self-driving car. And if they did make a self-driving car, I mean, that would be insane. If Apple made a self-driving electric car, I mean, everybody would fucking buy it. I would buy it. Everybody would buy it. Yeah, that's pretty great. So yeah, that's about it. That wraps it up. That's about it. That's what I wanted to say about the Apple car. I think it's a very, very exciting thing, and I also think it's very possible to create a self-driving car, and I think Apple can do it. And that car can then do stuff like pick you up and, go park yourself or whatever. I mean, that's not really that important. The most important thing is just the actual self-driving thing. And then again, Apple, the scale of Apple, and if Apple was working with Volkswagen, right, that sort of a corporation would definitely yield a possibility to push for certain laws. So Apple and Volkswagen could definitely lobby for changing of the laws and for basically allowing themselves to create a self-driving car that doesn't need human intervention. And if that was the case, that would be insanely great. That would mean you can just ask Siri to bring your car, sit in your car, have your car drive you wherever you want. You get out, the car goes, finds a place to park, comes back, picks you up when you want, drives you back home. And while it's driving you, it knows where a pothole is in the street, so it slows down. It knows where the traffic lights are. It has a super detailed, image of the whole city that you live in. And another big thing is the the charging of the car, which would probably be done in a similar way the new iPhone is charging with magnets. So when you park your car in your garage, the car automatically hooks up to electricity and charges itself, which is definitely what Apple would do. So it means that your car just is always ready to go. Wow. I mean, that would be pretty great. Okay, thanks for listening. If you like this video, leave a like, subscribe, and, tell somebody that you found this channel. Obviously, I'm looking for ways to grow. So if you can help me, that's appreciated. Bye-bye. See you next time. Subscribe if you like it. And we're going to...